Modern CMOs already know customer research works. Your best campaigns, your strongest positioning, your highest converting launches all come from it. So what do you do when your CFO or CEO keeps asking you to prove the ROI of research? And that's the tension. Marketing runs on customer insight, finance runs on evidence. When every dollar has to be justified, research starts looking like a luxury instead of the growth driver that it really is. Today, we're going to talk about how marketing leaders connect customer insights to business so research stops sounding academic and starts sounding profitable. Okay, let's just call a spade a spade. The value of research rarely shows up on a P&L statement. You're not going to see a specific line item on your profit margin that says this came from research, because even though your CEOs and CFOs want to see how every dollar spent contributes to the bottom line, that's not really how research works, right? So when you are communicating the value of research, you need to phrase it that it drives better outcomes, better decisions, higher converting campaigns, fewer failures. That is how you're going to start this conversation. It really speaks to how research is powerful in driving revenue and driving the bottom line, but in an indirect way. It's hard to defend because finance is really numbers driven. They want to see the facts, and they only see the facts as if it's driving those financial numbers and those dollars. So that's where the tension and the friction really comes in, because marketing's sitting there looking like, if it can't be tracked, does that mean it's not valuable? But we know that's not really the case. So I'm going to show you what to do in just a second. But let me say it plainly. Insight only becomes valuable to a CFO or someone who is financially driven when it can be tied to a business metric. So you want to connect the research that you're after to money, time, or effort. One of those three things. That's how you get this sold in, okay? So instead of talking about customer understanding, you're going to ground it in things that are a little more tangible. So product market fit, doing research to understand what to sell. You're going to connect that to revenue. Messaging clarity, trying to understand how to sell the thing in a way that is going to resonate with your audience. You're going to tie that to revenue. And then conversion efficiency. So getting higher conversion between when people first become aware of your brand and when they're ready to make a purchase. That can also be done with research, but you've got to translate that into the outcome for the business. So it is helping you to sell faster using psychology or whatever emotional triggers. So bottom line, you want to connect the research to revenue. And if you cannot do any of those, you can at least speak to how it is saving you from wasting resources, barking up the wrong tree, or chasing after things that aren't going to move your audience. So the challenge is, how do you translate that better customer understanding into measurable, tangible outcomes that finance people love to hear about? Okay, so here is how I translate research from being something that is interesting to something that is impactful, because I really believe that if research doesn't move, it's just expensive trivia and nobody's got time for that. So here is how I go about it. Every insight that I propose or bring forward to review is going to be grounded in, what does this do for the business? And there are 4 metrics that I like to connect that to, that executives already trust. They're already using this language in their conversations, so let's get the inside scoop and use it in our pitches. So you want to talk about conversion lift. How is this research going to help you to make a decision that will drive better conversion? You want to talk about how the research drives efficiency or waste reduction. Those are like kryptonite to your finance folks. They want to hear all about that. You also want to connect your research to sales acceleration. How does this help your sales team be more effective in their communication with customers, especially if you're a B2B business? Sales acceleration is very important. And then the last one is risk reduction. How are you making the business less risky by doing this research? So like I said, you want to justify your research costs in terms of the business outcome. So let me give you some quick examples. You don't go in saying, this is exploratory research. You go in saying, this informs the decisions that drive revenue. You don't go in saying, we need to do qualitative research. You go in saying, we've modeled that even with small improvements in conversion, we can deliver X amount more revenue in X fewer time. So when research becomes measurable and you can put a number, preferably a dollar number next to it, then it becomes defensible and you're much more likely to get it funded. Okay. Hey, if this is striking a chord, it's because most marketing leaders were never given a clean way to translate customer insight into financial language. That's why I built the Research Revenue ROI Calculator. It's an executive-ready framework designed to help marketing leaders show how research impacts revenue and efficiency. Instead of saying, research matters for better decisions, you can show what it results in a concrete measure. I'll link it to the comments. I'm going to need people to stop thinking of research as added cost when it really makes every other dollar in your business work just that much harder. I'm going to give you a way of how I think about this, and then I'm going to show you 2 examples. So it's really important to think of research as a way to reduce your overall costs. So say you have one campaign, we'll call it campaign A, and they get started with the approach of start fast, test and learn as you go, and eventually you will find your way to success or to return on investment. And so with every incremental step of improvement, you get more expensive. That's just the long and short of it. Once something is live and out there and in public, and you've already paid to have your message distributed or your manufactured product distributed, it's going to be very costly to continue to test and learn. So every time you touch that product, every time you make a new version of it, it comes with costs. And those costs just get more expensive the longer your product has been out there. Okay, that's just the truth. Instead, if you do what campaign B is, say that as the second example, and you invest early in some research before you even get started. That is a bit of an invested cost, right? But it helps you understand what are your best bets. How do you avoid some of the risks of failure before you even get started, so that when you do start, you are much closer to that destination. So maybe there is 1 or 2 tweaks you need to make along the way, but the cost of those is much lower because you're much closer to your end game. Okay, that's the way I think about it, and I want to give you a couple of examples in just a second. So I am currently running a lead campaign, and I checked the analytics right before filming this for you guys so that you guys can see I am quite literally putting my money where my mouth is. So I've been running this lead campaign for a few months right now, but I turned it off on the holidays. That's why you see it as it is. But anyway, as of right this moment, I have this lead campaign performing better than 50% of my competition over the same time frame. Okay, that's what I'm talking about when I say investing in research up front makes your marketing work harder on the back end. I'm already outperforming 50% of my competition. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Okay. And before you say, well, that's you're going to give yourself the best tools. I can also do this with my clients. So I have a health and wellness client that we are running some ads to a course that she's selling. And when I checked her campaign performance right before hopping on here, she's performing better than 46% of her competition. And that's in the health and wellness space. Pretty competitive. Okay, so I am quite literally putting my mouth where my money is to say, when you invest in the research and deep customer understanding up front, it translates to not having to spend so much when the thing goes live. All right. So let's talk about research as risk management. That is another thing that CFOs love to talk about. So to a CFO, preventing loss is just as valuable as creating new growth or new sales. And here's how I show that research really is risk management for your business. So think about every misaligned launch, every unvalidated message is a potential for your marketing to be barking up the wrong tree. targeting the wrong audience, not using the appropriate tone or emotive messaging to get the most bang from your marketing dollar. So I wanted to talk through a case study. So I did some shopper research quite a while back. It was for a large corporation, and they had just invested millions of dollars to put television screens inside of convenience gas stores with the assumption that, videos were really taking off in social media, and it's because people were more interested in moving pictures than a static image. And so even though they sold like a tangible product that sits on the shelf, even though the product packaging itself couldn't be moving, they could use videos in the TV screen to capture attention and get people more likely to buy their product in the gas stations. That was the assumption. So they spent all this money, pitched it, got it made, was in store, in retail across the nation. Then they decided they were going to do research after the fact. Okay, so I'm helping to do this research, and we are quite literally following their ideal customer in the store, not really asking a lot of questions, doing more observing than asking questions. And what we see is nobody's looking at those TV screens. In fact, after collecting hundreds of data points, we found that 80% of people already knew what they were going to buy before they even walked in the store. So this company had wasted millions of dollars on an assumption that wasn't validated. And so that is just one example of a very big company running with an assumption. And so had they done the research beforehand, they would have known that if you want to convince this customer to buy your product, you need to hit them on their phone. You need to hit them before they go into that retail channel, because after that, it's too late. They're not going to see it, and the decision's already made. So that's just, like I said, one example of how research can prevent wasted marketing spend. It can prevent campaign misfires or even possibly reputational damage. If you think about some of the ad campaigns that have come out and didn't do very well, imagine if they had done some research, had the customers in the room to test it before it went live. Just makes sense, right? So when leadership understands how research and insights can protect and grow revenue, conversation's already done. Funding stops being an issue and you can get fully funded. Okay. So when you can link your research directly to a measurable growth, you stop justifying it and start leading with it. That's how marketing leaders move from being tactical to trusted strategic partners. But knowing this is one thing and getting relevant insights is another. On the screen now, you'll see how to win with Gen Z, how they're not just buying with their wallets, but also with their values. Go ahead and check it out.